Hey nerds, Todd Simmons coming back at you with a little more Toddomation. Today I'm going to start a series on connecting to devices. Not different device types specifically, but actually thinking about the OEMs. I'm going to do 3 different OEMs, of course Arista, Cisco, and Juniper. This particular video is going to be using the NAPALM driver. Works a little bit different. We're also going to do NetMiko following this, and then after NetMiko, we're going to do Norner. So starting off with NAPALM, let's just go ahead and bring up my code. Couple of things that you're going to need to install. Obviously, you're going to need to install NAPALM, so just quick pip install NAPALM. And then I like to use ice cream when I'm printing things to the screen. I'm not going to print to the screen here, but I put that in there. That way when you actually go run the code, you can use it. Now, ice cream is a formatter. You could use print. You don't have to use ice cream. Or you could use pprint. Or you could use rprint, right? There's a bunch of different ways to do it. I like, when I'm looking at configurations for devices, I really like the way that ice cream structures it. So I included ice cream here. So first thing, NAPALM has some pre-installed methods, and these methods can actually, do things for you. The method I'm going to show you is one of the get methods, specifically the get facts. Now, the get facts is actually going to be more like the show version command that we use whenever we're in, one of these devices in the CLI. And here's what it's actually going to show you. So we're going to see uptime, the vendor, the model, the host name, the fully qualified domain name, the OS version, the device serial number, and then a list of all the interfaces. So it's a little more than show ver, right, when we're working on these devices, because the show ver doesn't show you all of the interfaces. So it's a pretty nice little command called get facts. Let's just jump right into it. So the first thing that we're going to need to do is, with NAPALM, after you've installed it and we've imported this get network driver, they do use the underscores on that. You have to type that exactly as it is, because that's the actual section that's going to have the methods associated with the network driver that you're going to need to get. Right here from NAPALM, import get network driver. The network driver is going to be how we actually connect to the devices. So to create the network driver, we're actually creating an object. Looks like I got a typo here in my code. Let me change it right there. And we're going to create an object. So once we create the network driver as an object, then we can pass information into this object. So the first thing that you have to do is use the get network driver to connect, not connect, but to specify the operating version. Very, very important, because the way that the operating system is going to depend on how the commands are sent into that particular device. So pretty simple, right? We're going to do the iOS, the EOS, and the June OS here. And in creating that object is this piece of it. Okay, so we're not going to have to type all of this anymore after that. We're going to use this object name that I've created for each one of these 3 here. Okay, so once we have the object, then we need to create a small dictionary that's going to be used associated with connecting to these devices. So as you can see, I have 3 dictionaries that I've created, and each of them all require the host name, the username, and the password. Obviously, I don't put passwords directly in like that. That's not very secure unless you're the only one that can see them. But what I did want to talk about a little bit more is these optional args that we see. So inside the NAPALM driver, you can send additional information through. So as you can see this one, if you're connecting to a Cisco device, and let's say that you've got enable secret, which means that when you initially log in, if your privilege level is not high enough, you would have to type enable. And then after you type enable, it would ask you for that password. This is going to send that automatically here, actually. Okay. And then if you want to specify the port, maybe you're not using a standard port for what you're doing, you can use the port command here as well. Now, that is an integer. Do not put that in quotes as a string, because the NAPALM driver expects that to be an integer. Now, you can do it a couple of different ways. Notice on the Juniper switch, I put it on a different line. Actually, I did not put it on a different line. On the Juniper switch, there is no enable password. That's why we're not seeing it inside the optional args. So on that one, you can just specify the port because there's not an enable. Now notice the Cisco switch here is calling it secret, and then the optional args for the same in the Arista world would be enable password. Once again, you have to put those args in. This is the key, and if that's not correct, it's not going to work. You don't need the optional args, especially if when you log into the device, your privilege level is high enough that you immediately go into privilege exec. But once again, if it's not, then you would need to include those optional args. So these are the devices. Now, notice it's a dictionary. Okay, and that means that when we pass this in, we use something called KWArgs, and let's talk about that now. So in order to actually create the connection, you're going to use this Arista driver. This is that network object that we created up here. As you can see, it's here. That's the object. And then we're going to create this additional connection, right? And I'm going to call the connection just whatever the OEM name is, connect. And then I specify the object that I created. And then here's where we're going to use those KWArgs. And some people get a little confused with the KWArgs because of the star before it. All that means is that you're including everything necessary in order to connect inside of a dictionary. And that's what we have here. We have these dictionaries. Some people actually title this KWArgs when they put that in. KWArgs is short for key word arguments. So we have our keys. These are each of our keys that we're specifying depending on the network object. And then the argument associated with that is actually the value. So it's a key value pair. If you've gotten confused on what KWArgs are, technically this is KWArgs, but we're not using the KWArgs variable. I'm calling it Arista switch. But the star says send it all through. Okay, so that actually creates the connection. So now it knows what it's going to connect to, the iOS, EOS, JunoOS type that it has. It's got a host name, a username, a password, and any optional arguments that you have. Then we do the Arista connect.open. This is the connection. As soon as you run this inside your Python code, you're establishing a connection to that particular device. Once we have the established connection, then we're going to run the get fax. And this is just the get fax method. There's nothing that you have to do, right? We've already established our connection. That's what's nice about the NAPALM driver is you don't have to specify the command because the get fax is the command. So it's pretty cool. Once you do that, that's actually going to be stored in a variable called Arista ver is what I'm calling these. Now, this is a dictionary of dictionaries, which I think it's great because it makes it very easy to put in JSON, to store it, to do whatever you want with that. I'm not always a fan of the lists that get returned, so this is going to be a dictionary. Once again, let's make sure that we just don't leave the connection open. You can specify a timeout if you want inside the optional args for all of these devices. By default, if you do not, it is 30 seconds. So 30 seconds afterwards, if you don't specify the close, it will close that connection for you. Then if you actually want to print out what those are, then we can use the IC or the ice cream command to do that. So that's the code for Arista, and you'll see that I've put code in here for the other two OEMs as well. So here's the same thing for Cisco. I didn't comment the lines out just because I figured it's the exact same steps that you're using depending on the OEM, whether it's an Arista, a Cisco, or a Juniper. And that's it as far as the code goes. So happy connecting. Let me know if you have any questions. Let me know if you have comments. Let me know specifically if you would like to see a particular video on a subject. I will put this up on my public GitHub. That way you can go and get this code and try it out for yourself. Please like, subscribe, and if you have any questions, let me know. Talk to y'all later, nerds. Bye.